We're back here preparing for the 2021 NFL Draft, and I have my two offensive linemen here giving me some protection up front. David Diehl and Shaun O'Hara, Super Bowl champions. Last year was one of the best offensive line classes we've seen in a long time. This year might be deeper guys with two guys at the top that slide in right with that group from last year. So, Shaun, I'll let you take the honors first. Break down Rashawn, Slater, and Penne Sewell, your top two guys. Which one do you like better, and why are those two guys at the top of this class for you?
Yeah, John, this is always fun when we're talking about the big boys. And you're right. This is a totally different tackle class from last year. The top two guys, like you mentioned, Rashawn Slater and Penne Sewell, there's absolutely a drop-off after those two guys. And, you know, the interesting thing about both of them is they're both really good in different aspects of their game. I think to start off with Penne Sewell, you know, the one thing that's tough about this kid is, man, he's so young. You know, I don't even think he can buy a beer yet. He's still a little bit raw, and yet he didn't play last year. So, you know, I think if Penne Sewell had played last year and he got another year in his belt, he would clear-cut be on everybody's list as the number one tackle in this year's draft. But he still has some room for growth. And I think when you look at how big he is and how well he moves at his size, man, these guys are hard to come by. So you look at the film on him at Oregon, a lot of the film, you go back to 2 years ago, he's playing next to our boy, Shane Lemieux. So it's kind of fun to watch them working together. They really worked well in combo blocks together. Their technique was very sound. You could tell they were really well coached. And I like Penne's footwork. I think when you look at him in space, that's where you're in awe of how athletic he is and how well he adjusts on the move in space as a blocker. And you know, that's gonna be something that'll suit him well at the second level. John, I think the big thing for Penne is he is so strong and so powerful. He's gotten away with wide hands and, you know, maybe not so great technique hand wise at the college level. That's something he's going to have to correct really quick at this next level. For Rashawn Slater, I feel like he is much more polished technique-wise. The left tackle for Northwestern, when you look at some of his game footage, obviously, I thought he just did a really nice job as a tackle of shooting his hands and keeping his face out of the punch. You know, those arms were just locked out. He did a really nice job with his inside hand. So I really like him as a pass protector. I think he's the better pass blocking tackle, and I think Penne Sewell is the better run blocking tackle. Yep. But I really think that Penne can grow into being that, and I think that Rashawn can improve as a run blocker as well.
Dave,
I'll piggyback on top of that. You know, I think with Penne Sewell, as Shaun said, one of the exciting things is to see his athleticism, to get out on those screens with the wide receivers, his ability on the backside to get to the cutoff and the pursuit angle, to cut off the backside linebacker of where he's going to be, not where he's at. But with that said, one of the things that you think about when you get to this Oregon offense, he didn't have a ton of one-on-ones with the way that they spread the football out and how quickly the football got out of the quarterback's hands. And you look back to the time where he was able to punch and redirect and do those things. It jumps off film with his ability to shock a defensive end, restart and redirect him. I think Shaun was spot on when you talk about overall just polished product right now. That's Rashawn Slater coming out of Northwestern. I think he has the best feet, the most consistent pass sets. And some people talk about his length and his arm length being a disadvantage. Yeah, you would love for him to have go-go gadget arms, but how do you make up for it with the timing, when you throw your punch, where your hand placement is? And he's one of those players that can use independent punching. I think he's more of a zone scheme than he is a power scheme blocker in the run game. But I do think with the continued work of double teams, the fit and the gap movement that he gets with the double teams with the guards and getting people off at the point of attack, those are all things that he'll consistently get better at. But in regards to road grader, from moving a man from point A to point B, Sewell is a much better man at doing that.
You guys both think Slater is a tackle? I know some people think he's moving into guard. You guys both see Slater as a long-term tackle, even potentially a left tackle?
Yeah, I think he's got tackle written all over him. And, you know, look, Dave can answer this question better than anybody. You know, it's people will say, oh yeah, he's a tackle in college. Oh yeah, let's slide him in a guard. It's a whole different animal down there. And, you know, it's a totally different leverage game. You know, at tackle, it's all about space and having those long arms. benefit you. Sometimes when you move inside, having long arms can hurt you. That's why Chris Snee was so good. He didn't have to worry about that. I think that you throw a guy with long arms and, a high hip guy inside, and, now that knee bend becomes even more paramount.
Yeah, and to go off of that as well, think about playing offensive tackle is like playing defense on basketball. The defensive end is the offensive player with the basketball. The quarterback is the hoop of where the offensive player with the basketball wants to go. Rashawn Slater takes excellent angles and footwork to cut off at the intersection points and to initiate the fight. I see him as a clear-cut offensive tackle.
All right, Dave, who's in your next group? I think, do both you guys agree that those guys are definitely options in top 10, top 11 for the Giants? Yes?
Yeah.
You're both nodding. I'll take that as a yes.
They're in their own category.
Yep.
Anybody else comes, Dave, for you close to that group? Or do we have a pretty sizable gap here? And then who is in that next group for you in terms of offensive linemen? You can throw either guards and centers into that group too, if you think they deserve the credit for that.
You got it. I think there is a gap when you're starting to go into the Christian Darrishaws and the Tevin Jenkins. I think Darrishaw, even though he played left tackle at Virginia Tech, he's a right tackle. When you look at his size, his ability to work inside out and to maintain and use that big body in that frame and his aggressive punch, I think he's more of a right tackle than he is a left tackle in the league. Tevin Jenkins, I mean, if you're looking for a barroom brawler that's going to come out and play with nasty and that mean streak, he's the guy. He finishes guys to and through the whistle. He is a guy that it will fight and give you every ounce of what he has. We know he loves the game of football. He's willing to put in the time for his techniques and fundamentals to really be consistent with it. You always talk about, like we were talking like with Rashawn Slater, when you see that pass set, you want to see, okay, if they had pain on their feet, would it be the same kicks? Would it be the same angles? Or is it different based upon the rusher on the outside? That's an area where I think that Tevin Jenkins can improve, but I would love to coach a guy like that because of the potential and the overall makeup of who he is as a player.
Jenkins and Darrisaw, to me, both two just powerful dudes. I mean, when you watch Christian Darrisaw on film at Virginia Tech, you could just see he's got a great lower body base. When he gets in a stance, he kind of reminds me of Randy Thomas. Maybe it's the 77 on his jersey, but I mean, he looks like he's doing in the woods. And that just shows like the hip power, the strength, the lower body power. And then when he gets his hands on people, I mean, he is throwing dudes out of the club. And, I love the power that he brings, from those hips. And he's able to deliver that through his hands with his shock, with his punch. Tevin Jenkins, absolutely powerful dude. I think that there's definitely room for him to move inside if he wanted. I know he's a big dude at 6'5", but I think he can definitely handle that power. I think one interesting guy is Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. From a production standpoint, Eichenberg is, look, he didn't give up a sack in the last 2 years. I think the guy has been phenomenal. The fact that he's battling every day to stay at 300 pounds, that girth means something. So he could use an extra year to kind of get bigger, and I think that will help him get a little bit stronger too. So for him, it's all about where he goes, not just in the draft, but scheme-wise as well.
One guy you guys haven't mentioned, by the way, Shaun, excuse me, is Elijah Vera-Tucker, who's from USC. Some people think he's a first-round pick. He played tackle this past year. Before that, he was a guard. Shaun, how do you see him? Do you think he sticks out there at tackle? Do you see him more as a guard? And will he be a first-round pick, you think, when all is said and done this year?
Yeah, I know he played tackle. It almost kind of felt like more out of necessity than out of desire. And, ironically, look, I played left tackle in college too, and I knew that there was no way, and that was going to happen at the next level. I had to move inside. So he's got a great anchor. He's got a really solid base, good footwork. So I think he would be best suited at guard.
Dave, how about you with Vera-Tucker? Because he's a guy, much like you, played inside, outside. How do you see his game translating?
I think that he is a versatile player. Obviously, versatility means an extended career and a long, great career. And I think that that's something that he brings. I see him more as a guard than I do tackle. But as we've seen in my career, that can change at any point in time. I think that he plays with inside out, powerful lower half. The area where I think that he can truly excel is jump setting. He can get on top of people, get those arms and those hands inside quick. And I think that he'll be able to move people at the point of attack, whether he's working ace and double teams with the center or working the power schemes with the offensive tackle. He has natural leverage and ability to bend and pry to stand up the defensive tackle before the kick out and the kick down by the offensive tackle. So I see him playing very well in the NFL, but as Shaun said, I see him more interior, but if he needed to play tackle, obviously he has the versatility and the flexibility to do so.
You know, guys, based on what analysts have said, it seems to me that there are a lot of these combo guys that could go here at the end of the first round, top of the second round. You know, a guy like Alex Leatherwood, he played tackle at Alabama, right tackle. Some people think he's a guard. Sam Cosmi from Texas, he played tackle in college. Some people think he's going to be a guard. Jaylen Mayfield, Michigan, tackle in Michigan. People think because of his testing, he might have to go in and play guard. Shaun, from that group, who is it that you really like that you think can play both spots if you're looking for someone with some position versatility that can play outside and or inside if you need them, if the Giants want to go offensive line there at the top of round 2?
Yeah, you mentioned Jaylen Mayfield from Michigan. Played tackle. And, look, I look back at just kind of some of the guys that came through that program. Mason Cole played left tackle for them. I think he started as a true freshman, the first kid to do that in the history of the program. And he goes to the NFL. He's moved into center. So, I think for Mayfield, absolutely, for him to be able to kick inside and could he play tackle? I think he's probably better suited as a guard. Mayfield could absolutely provide somebody with some great competition at the guard and maybe even swing tackle position later on. Like you said, a second or third round pick. I think the other guy that you mentioned is Leatherwood, Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. Man, I tell you what, John, this kid can block you from a different county. His arms are so long. And you watch him out in space, and linebackers, they're getting locked out from 4 yards away. They can't even, they can't avoid him because they can't get his hands off him. And he's got lobster mitts. When he puts his lobster claws on you, that's it. He is locked on. You're not getting away from him. So, how much time does he need to get acclimated will determine, where he goes second or third round.
Shaun, the Giants might want to use a day 2 pick here to reinforce their interior offensive line. Kevin Zeitler's no longer with the team. Shane Lemieux's second year. Will Hernandez, fourth year, but not a ton of experience between those guys. You might want to try to reinforce that a little bit. They did bring in a couple of veterans in the offseason that can serve as backstops for those guys. Who might you like that plays guard, center, or both in that second, third round area that stick out to you on tape?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. And I think, look, if you're trying to grow this offense and grow this offensive line, you need some competition. You need some guys to push each other. I thought Shane Lemieux did a nice job coming in last year and solidifying the group. Will Hernandez, I'm looking forward to seeing how he responds. And he's going to get a shot at right guard. But you bring in some competition. There are some guys that can come in and push. I think when you look at Wyatt Davis from Ohio State, look, he's a powerful dude, and he's got a lot of power, in the run game. I think he's got some things he's got to polish up in the passing game. He gets a little bit top heavy and can get on his toes a little bit. But he's a guy that can come in and compete. You mentioned guard center combos. And, I think Nick Gates has done a really nice job moving into center. Last year was his first year playing center. But I tell you, I love this guy, Landon Dickerson, out of Alabama. And he started out as a guard early on in his career. He ended up moving to center. He's really thick, really stout. Medically, it's going to take you 3 days to get through all of his MRIs and x-rays because he had a lot of injuries throughout his college career. But he's a stud that I think will bounce back from this injury, and he could certainly provide a lot of great competition, some depth, and certainly a lot of laughs.
And my last one would be Aaron Banks, another guard out of Notre Dame. This is a player, as I said, that I've met early. You want to talk about a mature player. He is actually the legal guardian of his younger brother and is basically the one running the household and lives with his uncle. So it says a lot about his character and his makeup. 6'5", 325. You want to talk about moving somebody at the point of attack? He is the guy that can do that. Definitely needs to hone in on his techniques and fundamentals in the passing game. But Aaron Banks is another one of those players that if you put him in a phone booth, he's going to fight, scratch, and claw, and he's going to play through the whistle. And those are the things that you love that are exciting about some of these prospects.
All right, guys, final question. I'll give you both 60 seconds here. We got about 2 minutes to go. How essential do both of you think, and Dave, I'll let you go first this time, because Shaun let us off today, it is for the Giants to add an offensive lineman within the first 3 rounds here that can step in and either start or at least compete for a starting spot, whether it's a guard or tackle or wherever you think is most important?
I definitely think it's important. I wouldn't go first or second round, but I would definitely look in the third round to see if there's an opportunity to somebody to go and grab that. As Shaun said, this is an area where we know that this is got to be competition. We understand how important it is in this offense to protect the interior of the pocket. The tackles provide the width, the interior center and guards provide the depth. If you want to protect Daniel Jones in this offense and continue to make this the best group it can be, it's all about competition. So for me, I would definitely, if I was the New York Giants, look in the third round to draft a guard / versatile player that can play on the outside if need be.
Yeah, it's, really, this goes year to year, draft to draft. You're looking at the third round and you say, all right, what has the run been in the second and third round? If there's a run on corners and wide receivers and you need to grab one of those, the old linemen kind of get kicked down to the fourth round. So I don't think it's necessary for the Giants to draft an offensive lineman in these first 3 rounds to create that competition. This draft is pretty darn deep, and you could still get some quality guys in the 4th, even 5th round. Look, Diehl was a 5th rounder. I was a free agent. I think Dave Gettleman has done a really good job. And he's got a proven track record at finding some guys that, maybe were left off of draft boards, maybe some guys that, are under the radar, and finding a way to bring them into the system. So I think if there is a guy that you have as a second round grade and he's there in the 3rd round, absolutely take him, because as we've all seen, you look at the NFC East and what this division went through from an offensive line standpoint last year, it was an absolute train wreck. Right. Every organization, every team was battling with their O-line depth, and you need 7 guys that can step in and play. So absolutely that competition will help not just the starting 5, but it'll help your overall depth.
It is a position group you never stop reinforcing year after year, because you never know when you're going to need that next guy to step in and play. Gentlemen, it's always fun talking O-line with you. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to see what the Giants do in the draft.